Solo always does shots first. Singing yup no.
Yup, yup.
You're singing yup no.
Chucha.
Yup no.
No.
At the Cantina Club.
But in that second episode, you've got the ship being taken apart. You've got the Trandoshan fight with the boss characters, which is another throwback to Lone Wolf and Cub or things like that, samurai films. I loved the Jawa disintegrations were just incredible. Yeah. That was almost my favorite moment of the whole episode. Which brings the whole Vader, no disintegration thing back.
Exactly.
Evidently, they have the capacity to do this.
Yes.
And then again, you get a video game sequence where he's chasing the sandcrawler and climbing up, and the Jawas are popping out of different windows, reminding me. But again, this is like an old video game, like an early '80s video game. And so again, the tone is consistent and everything, and again we get to see that the Mandalorian is human or whatever he is, because Jawas defeat him even despite his determination. The fact that he's the hero, and when you think he's going to succeed, they just have overwhelming numbers.
Literally, like right when he gets to the top, he's like, aha, bang, and he's down.
And I also like this continues, or this establishes in the second episode that the Mandalorian is a cross between the best parent ever and the worst parent ever, because he evidently has that ball set on trail or whatever where it follows his armor signal. But he just runs off and leaves the baby Yoda there. But earlier he protects the baby Yoda, but it's still in the middle of a fight, in the Trandoshan fight, he pushes the baby out of the way. But again, over and over again, we see this cool kind of charming thing with the Mandalorian that he doesn't know what he's doing. He's doing what he can. He knows when someone's trying to kill it, but he doesn't really. The kid's like so close to disaster all the time because the Mandalorian doesn't seem to be paying attention. Anyway, it's great, but I love the whole Jawa thing. The Ugnaught character being back was fantastic. You got an awesome character moment with him where he said he'd been a slave his whole life and he's paid the price and he's not going to take orders from anyone anymore. I mean, that's just great. Short to the point. I love that character. So I hope in classic this kind of pulp stuff, he would be the first one to die. Whoever the Mandalorian's enemy is would use him to draw him back to an ambush or something, by sacrificing him. So because he's really the closest connection so far that he's got. So anyway,
but he's also patterned on those locals, the wise old local who ends up helping the lone gunman or the lone samurai who wanders into town to figure out what they're doing.
And guidance but still a tough survivor. They're usually like a tough survivor type that is to go under the radar, but has some kind of secret pride that they hold on to. Kind of like from was it Jimbo, where he said he met the coffin maker.
The coffin maker
explained all the come around. He said, "Well, what do you think? You should be moving on, right?" And he said, "I actually think this place would be a lot better off if all of these men were dead."
Let me say this too about, you mentioned Lone Wolf and Cub. That first scene of this episode when the Trandoshans attack them as they're wandering through that landscape, just the two of them alone, and he's carrying the bassinets going alongside him, and Baby Yoda's looking around the landscape as they're going through, like something's going to happen. Listeners who aren't familiar with samurai films need to go look at the Lone Wolf and Cub films. I think they're available on the Criterion streaming service now. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the first one, isn't it called Baby Cart from Hell? Because you got the lone samurai, he's lost his wife, and I think he's traveling trying to get revenge for his wife, and he's saddled with his child, his baby, that he's rolling around literally in a baby cart, in a baby carriage that is not what it appears to be. So anybody who's interested in the connection between the Mandalorian and the Baby Yoda, you need to go look at that series of samurai films, because that's part of what that's patterned on.
And don't take it seriously, but just have a good time with it.
No, it's campy and fun.
And the lone wolf in that one was a former executioner who, I can't remember, he messed up an execution or something, and that's why he was banished and his wife was killed or something. But so again, in like the samurai films, you got somebody with a high skill set who used to have a higher standing, who now, because society has fallen, is basically better than those around them. But nobody really recognizes that. You can even see at the beginning of the first episode, they're trashing him, like being a Mandalorian is looked down upon now by the thugs
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah,
They think he's somebody they can push around. They didn't get the memo, but about the second episode, we also got what did they call it, the Mudhorn creature in there,
Yeah,
which was a lot of fun. That was my one drawback in the episode, is that I didn't really like the fact that the Baby Yoda was able to levitate this 5-ton creature. I didn't think that was it didn't have the effect of a great reveal to me. It was almost like, it's going a little too far. It's too far too fast. But they haven't gone back to that, and it did knock him out for a long time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, but still, it was a little bit too much to know about the Baby Yoda. I would have been more happy if they had kept it subtle, like he had some kind of subtle connection with controlling the creature, or emotionally controlling it, or calming it, or something. I don't know. I felt kind of bad for that Mudhorn creature because it was just protecting its egg.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, ultimately we get to the next episode, which I know we're not getting there yet, but he even said that it was not a what's the word he used? An honorable kill. Yeah, because he even knows it wasn't right necessarily what he did. He just did what he had to do in the moment to get his parts back.
That's the second episode, and we're learning things about the Mandalorian, but being entertained, so we're not even paying attention to the fact that we're learning things about him. In the first episode, he refuses a bribe, and he freezes a character that is going to be his bounty because that's his duty, even though he's not. It doesn't really seem like a bad guy.
Right.
So he's not swayed by people being nice to him. He's not swayed by money. He's going to do the job. He's bored. He's better than what he's doing. But he does have a code. And then we find out that he's got an enclave, a secret enclave. And then at the end, we find out that he's not willing to cross the line. And he also hates droids. We found that out, which IG-11 found out as well. But what I was going to say was about in the second episode we find out that he will die fighting. That's good enough for him when he holds the blade in front of himself.
Yeah, that's just a suicide move. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's not going to run, but
right.
But he's just been beaten down. He knows he's about to lose, but he's willing to accept it with grace. So he's living on the knife's edge, literally. Accepting that he could die at any moment. I do like the fact too that those daggers are vibro blades, which I didn't pick up on until the next episode when they made it kind of clear, and that's how he was able to kill that creature with what seemed like a shallow stab.
Right.
And at the end of that episode, he brings the egg back to the Jawas, and the Jawas just savagely rip it apart.
Immediately tear it open and start eating it. Yeah.
Which my first thought was,
Jawa drugs.
This is a flash forward to what the Imperials are going to do to the Baby Yoda, which is also in an egg, which is a spawn of something that is unknown and mysterious, and he's been asked to bring back, just like the Jawas asked him to bring it back, and he assumes it has some significance, but really all they want to do is just ravage it for their own reason, their own greed, and pull it apart. It's a great image, really, when you think about it. When you're dealing with a show that's trying to quickly get to the point and tell visual stories, and Jawas we don't even know what they're saying. Yeah. At first it seemed kind of stupid. I was like, that's kind of dumb, the Jawa. And I thought, it's showing us what's going to happen, and he's going to have this in his head when he returns the Baby Yoda. He's like, they're going to do the same thing the Jawas just did.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good parallel.
Yeah.
If there's one thing this episode taught us that we didn't maybe already know, is that Jawas are jerks.
They don't even mourn their fellow Jawas.
They don't mourn their dead.
They don't mourn their dead. They are just
they'll still get a buck out of you even after you kill them.
They're great. It's like, but you still love them. They're like so great.
Yeah. And they enjoy driving their sandcrawler and running over people and stuff.
And I love the fact that we got a shot of the inside of the cockpit for the first time ever inside a sandcrawler.
Yeah.
That was great seeing that. I just love those. And this is also getting back to my point about the writing. This is one of my favorite sort of things that happen is when he's negotiating with the Jawas and they make fun of how he's like, you speak terrible Jawa. And he's like a Wookiee, and he's like, oh, you understand this? And he tries to fry him with the flame.
And they're still wanting to deal with him after that. They'll still deal with him.
They still work. And after fried 4 of their guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. that was
But yeah,
phenomenal.
I loved this episode. I loved all that stuff. I thought it was fantastic.
Can I ask Corellian what he thought about the levitating, the Baby Yoda using the Force to
I
levitate the Mudhorn?
I thought it was a little bit much, similar to what Greedo said, but I really wasn't bothered by it, honestly. It was one of those things like when I saw it happening, I was like, that might have been a little bit too far, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It was, and again,
Yeah, they're asking
we
you just to accept some
but like
things.
Greedo pointed out, they've never gone back to that. It's not like every episode now. It's like
Yeah.
some huge
Yeah,
grandiose thing
yeah.
it does with the, yeah. So and
Also,
in the end, I'm okay with it.
Assuming that there's like 5 people in the world who've never seen Yoda before and are never seen Star Wars and are watching this
You
show
need
as a
to know
standalone,
that-
then
yeah.
it establishes why
Yeah.
somebody would want this creature.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Right.
good point. I do want to say one thing about that scene is that what interested me more than him levitating the Mudhorn was the weird connection that seemed to develop between him and the Mandalorian that
Mhm.
was implied by the camera work in
Yeah.
that scene. Because when the Mandalorian went down and the Mandalorian knocked him down, he was about to go unconscious, and you get a point of view shot from the Mandalorian's perspective that starts to fade out like he's going unconscious. They cut to the Baby Yoda, and Baby Yoda is intensely focusing on him and what's going on. And then they cut back to the point of view shot of the Mandalorian. It comes back in focus, and he becomes conscious again. And I'm
Right.
wondering if he doesn't also have the capacity for putting his mind into others, or making some kind of telepathic connection with others to help them or
Could
something.
be.
Because that was just a really odd moment. I didn't know quite what to make of that. It's
It-
obvious later that he's trying to help heal his actual physical
Yeah.
wounds, but I think he went
Right.
into his mind at that
Mhm.
point in some way. So who
No,
knows?
I
what
think
he-
I think he probably revived him for sure, so that he'd have a chance to keep fighting.
That's
So
the
he
way
wouldn't
I
get
went.
killed.
I thought he revived him because he was obviously knocked unconscious at that point, and I think that was just Baby Yoda reviving him.
Yeah,
I think Baby Yoda stayed out of the fight as much as he could until
Mhm.
it was obvious Mandalorian
Yeah.
was about to die. That's when he pulled out the
Yeah.
big Force trick.
yeah,
But you could take a cynical viewing of this that the Baby Yoda is using the Jedi mind trick on the Mandalorian from the first moment that orb opens, because
yes. I've wondered
he's got a
that.
machine. He's got a machine standing there, and he's got a man standing there, and it looks like a machine. Well, which one is a Jedi
Yeah.
youngling or whatever he is, Force user, going to go for?
Yeah.
You're gonna if you're an empath or something, you're gonna establish a connection with the one with emotions, and then if he's weak-minded, you're gonna control the hell out of him. His perfect bodyguard, perfect armored
Yeah.
bodyguard. But that
All right.
was
So do we want to give our ratings?
yeah. Episode 2, I would give episode 2, I'd say an 8.5.
Okay. Oh, we went up. All right.
Yeah.
Gundark.
A 9.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll say a 7.5. 7.5.
Whoa.
7.5. It's only a half a point down from episode 1,
Oh,
but
come on.
yeah, no, it's still still 7.5. Still a good score. Still a good score. All
It was
right.
basically a filler episode that did not have the feel of a filler episode.
Right.
It entertained you. You're like, oh, we're gonna have an adventure with Jawas, really? But then it's badass. It's
Yeah,
really
exactly.
good. So, yeah.
All right. So episode 3,
The Sin.
The Sin.
The Sin.
Oh man, what a great episode this one
This
was.
was my favorite episode of
This is
four.
my favorite
Yeah,
episode.
this is my favorite
Yeah.
episode.
Hard to beat. Hard to beat that one.
Absolutely.
Why,
Absolutely.
Corellian? Why? Why is it?
Well, it just, to me, it was everything it had about it. It really is, well, because it's the most establishing episode so far to let us know what's going to happen for the rest of the season, if nothing else. The way, I mean, not to get too far ahead, but the way the whole show wraps up, how Mandalorian brings his Corey back, rethinks everything right as he's about to leave, goes back, saves Baby Yoda, and then takes off with him, and that just sets the tone now for the rest of the season about what's going to happen.
Mhm.
But I just love the combination of action, dialogue, the fact that we start getting more of that interaction between Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian. That I just love that chemistry, especially when clearly Baby Yoda is trying to heal his wounds as the episode starts, when he's sitting there working on his armor and trying to fix the gash in his arm, and he just keeps picking him up and putting him back in. He's like, no, I'm trying to help. Like, nope, get back in there. You know, I just love that stuff. So yeah, overall, and of course at the end, I mean that amazing scene at the end. You know, come on with all the Mandalorians coming out.
Wasn't that everybody's Boba Fett dream?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, again, they're making dreams come true. Yeah, they really are.
A million Boba Fett's flying around kicking ass.
But it wasn't a million. J.J. Abrams could, I mean, I shouldn't even say this, but he could take a clue from this stuff because I can't identify with a million things. Yeah. I'm not that smart. You know, I don't have that sense of perspective. I can identify with 8 things that seem like 100.
Yeah.
But they, you know, but when you, it was impressive when they came up with CGI and they could take a line of troops and multiply them times 1,000 and make a huge crowd scene when you can't afford to do crowd scenes anymore in Hollywood. I understand that, but it's not so impressive anymore. It's impersonal. Yeah. You know, you know exactly what you're seeing because the cat's out of the bag. You know, the Baby Yoda's out of the sphere. So I'd much rather see Mandalorians that seem to have personality. Their armor's all different, their body types are different, their weapons are different. But
and they're well matched against the small force of bounty hunters. It's a small force of Mandalorians against a small force of bounty hunters in a street brawl. Basically.
Yeah, and aren't we all fatigued? They talk about Star Wars fatigue. I don't think there's any such thing, but there is a fatigue with the galactic scale stakes.
Yes.
Every single Marvel movie has to have the universe ending, or it's not worth the time.
The entire universe on the line. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. Every single time, and it's kind of like the
problem. For me, it's like the problem that has gotten into Star Trek. Every single Star Wars or Star Trek episode or movie now has to destroy the Enterprise, and they literally lose the Enterprise every single episode or every single movie now. It's like, come on, why is everything got to be so massive? You know,
they're more worried about when can we do the close-ups of the crew's reaction shots to the massive drama than they are story. Yeah, and this is cool, just seeing people scrabbling over a block of street, you know, and trying to
exactly
because they know they're going to get paid or whatever. Yeah. I also like the fact that we're skipping around here, but that the bounty hunter characters aren't just craven. When he starts disintegrating them, they don't just break and run. Yeah. You know, like you would expect them to. They actually have some backbone or are willing to take some risks. They're just not very skilled.
and there seems to be
clever, you know.
There seems to be a bounty hunter code that they're living up to too, and that he violated. You know, I think that's part of the sin of the title of the episode. Isn't just that he turned over the baby to the client, but that he violated his own code.
Well, he violated the code. Yeah, exactly. By first just asking the questions, and then by obviously the physical actual retrievul of the asset.
How uncharacteristic.
Yeah. So there's no going back to that bounty hunting lifestyle.
Yeah. How uncharacteristic. It's like Count Dracula when he says that. It's like, whoa.
Well, why don't we talk about the scene with Herzog, his second appearance in the film? When the Mandalorian, after he gets his new armor made, it's when he first turns the child in. There is an implication that what do you make of what they want with the kid? Why do they want it? I mean,
it comes down to that scene where he overhears them talking, and they say,
"Okay, that's where he goes in the second time." Okay.
Yeah, but that's the only clue we really get is that there is another client who wants it for a substance, and it's becoming too risky. And he says, Herzog says to the scientist, "I can't protect you anymore."
Yeah.
So there's pressure coming in from all sides.
Well, if you look, also though, if you do a deep dive into this stuff, if you really look at the scene, the doctor, I forget his name, but the doctor is actually wearing a badge that is from Camino. So you do the math.
So he is a
cloning facility. Yep. Okay, so definitely cloning might be involved in.
And that makes sense. Like get the sample or whatever he says. You know, it's whatever DNA sample they need to to do the cloning process.
And see, I got a sense from Herzog's additional scenes in this episode that he wasn't the one that ordered all those other bounty hunter assassins to go kill the asset. That someone else is after the death of Baby Yoda. That he really wanted Baby Yoda brought back alive, but dead if necessary. But there were others that were just there to kill him, like the Trandoshans. And
Well, I think he could have also possibly been clever there and saying proof of death is enough, which implies part of the body maybe, which they could maybe extract whatever they're trying to extract. But I think a key to that is the name of the person that they're afraid of was
blurred out.
staticked out, and then also he said extract the substance.
Yeah.
Well, I think if he meant DNA, he would say DNA. So I don't think it is DNA. I think it's midichlorians, most likely.
Yeah,
I think they're going to try to redeem midichlorians by bringing it into a story that people like. Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense.
And I think we also got a little bit more evidence that there's obviously a bigger player in the mix here, because if you look at the scene where the Mandalorian is using his, that gun thing to actually use almost, as like a hearing, thing, you see in like the sort of the X-ray of them through the wall and all that. The producers cleverly distorted it when he said who was asking the questions about. Has requested that, like that. So we didn't get the name, but clearly he was talking about someone, whoever they're answering to was asking for this.
Yeah. So.
Which is very intriguing, but again, they don't hammer you over the head with it or spend a lot of time on it. It's just a.
Could it be the Emperor?
That was kind of my first thought, but I doubt it. I think it's probably more like a Thrawn type character.
Okay, I'm going to make a prediction here. I think it's the Emperor, because the penultimate episode of this show is going to air 2 days before the new Star Wars movie, where we're going to find out more about Palpatine's plans at the end of the Skywalker saga.
But do you really think they'd spoil something in the show before the movie came out?
Well, we know already that Palpatine's going to be in the movie.
But are they going to say that Palpatine used Baby Yoda's midichlorians to create Rey?
No, I don't know. I don't think they'll do that. But I think somehow there will be implication that Baby Yoda might be connected to his overall plans, which must involve cloning. If cloning himself, maybe that's how he comes back or something. I don't think it may be explicit, but I think maybe there might be a Palpatine reveal.
Oh, I just figured it out. It's from Revenge of the Sith, the number 2 Rising with a Bullet Star Wars movie of all time. It is from the scene in the Senate, where they're fighting it out, and Yoda gets knocked off, and he falls to the ground, and then you see his cloak spinning off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Palpatine got his cloak and cloned.
Holy crap!
The DNA on his cloak.
Oh wow!
And then since he's a Camino, since the age doesn't match up, 50 years, he would have been. That would have been either the Kaminoans or whatever scientists sped up the aging process.
Well, see, we know that we assume, because everybody's calling Baby Yoda he, that it's male. So that might lend support that it could be a clone of Yoda. Or could it be a child of Yoda? I doubt that, because Yoda preached celibacy. So I don't think that's the case.
We're getting into CSI Coruscant now, right? Yeah.
Oh, and here's another option, though. Could he have, because he was, and I don't know if this is right, but stuff I've been reading on the internet, looking at the timeline.
Don't read stuff on the internet.
People are speculating that he was born the same time as Anakin Skywalker, this Baby Yoda was.
Yeah.
Well, could it be, if there's all this balance of the Force stuff, which I don't understand, and the new stuff, could it be that the Force is creating something to balance off Anakin Skywalker? Could it be a creation of the Force? I don't know.
This all gets confusing because the comics have now come out and said, and we don't know for sure whether it's true or not, that Palpatine created Anakin.
Yeah.
Whether he did that, whether that was part of the grand scheme for the good and he didn't realize he was being manipulated, by the Force. You know what I mean? Even though he was the agent, he may not have been ultimately responsible for it. But still, this gets the waters get really muddy if you're going to say Palpatine created everything. He's becoming the most important guy. He creates Vader. He's creating Baby Yoda.
He's creating Baby Yoda. Regardless, I think whoever it is trying to get Baby Yoda is trying to weaponize the Force. I think maybe they want to create a clone army that can use the Force.
Sith troopers.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Sith troopers from Episode 9. I bet you that's probably what they are.
Maybe
Because where the
that's what
hell did they get all
the
these Sith
crossover.
troopers from? And they dropped
Right.
the whole clone army line in Force Awakens. But anyway, let's get back to Episode 3.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. We don't know anything about Baby
Yeah.
Yoda. And I think the mystery is far better than knowing.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like, can you imagine how shocking it's going to be when Baby Yoda says Mando, as his first
His first word.
Mando. That's gonna it's either gonna be make or break. So I hope that he never speaks. I hope he
Yeah,
never
yeah, me
survives
too.
that point. But I think there's a very good chance he's been falsely, his aging's been accelerated, and we're gonna see. It'd be pretty bold of them to change the character, and maybe they'll do that. But anyway, this episode had some of my favorite moments in it with the stormtrooper deaths, which is fan service of the best kind because it's stuff we want to see, or I wanted to see.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't like those stormtroopers. We all disliked them, and then when they grabbed and manhandled the Baby Yoda,
Oh God.
it made everybody angry. Everybody.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the 501st took a hit there because the stormtrooper popularity definitely dropped quite a bit. But,
That was cringeworthy. Ooh.
but they got their just desserts, and I mean, he killed them in every way possible, almost. Which was without being bloody. But man, the roasted marshmallow stormtrooper was pretty freaking hardcore though at the end there.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I love that.
He was the one that grabbed the bassinet.
I love that sequence where he went through his whole. He's basically like a Navy SEAL for Mandalorian. Where he blew the wall down, went in, crashed the place by himself. The armor makes him deflect, shots that aren't lethal, so he has a really good chance against stormtroopers who can't hit the broadside of a barn. I will say that they hit him a couple times, so I'll give him credit for that. But that was a phenomenal sequence, and of course Herzog was missing. I was really looking forward to a confrontation there, but we're obviously going to get it at some point. I don't think he's gone for good. And
No, I don't think so either.
Again, we get the throwback with the torture droid, which is awesome, and the Yoda being scanned and all that, which is a throwback to something that I can't think of it with that scan on the bed and everything. Looked very similar to some other medical readouts from Star Wars, but I can't remember what they are. So anyway, was Yoda? My first thought was that Baby Yoda's force powers were extracted, and that he's now going to be powerless in that regard from going forward. And that would be their way of disarming this whole thing of how do we handle a character that can, it will become a plot contrivance where he'll
That's
just
an
like
interesting
be.
thought.
Yeah, I wonder if he will just be a normal, Yoda frog now.
Yeah.
And maybe the scientist was lying because I don't trust that scientist, even though he seems to be attached to it. Which they're implying that he's the one that kind of created these from a lab or something, probably, and that's why he's attached. But I have a feeling he has some sick attachment more than he's a Nazi scientist. Basically, they're no good to their core. So
you thought he was at first going to vivisect him, but I don't think he was ever intending that. And I even wondered when he threw his own body in front of it, whenever he thought the Mandalorian was one of the assassins sent to kill the Baby Yoda. I thought maybe that he might be working for the other side, that he might be a double agent of some kind, but I don't know. But he definitely wants the kid alive, whether it's for his own scientific, crazy, mad scientist agenda or for a moral purpose.
I think it's the same situation where the military and the military intelligence and the scientists and stuff are never all on the same page.
Yeah,
Right.
They all have their own agendas that they want, and Herzog is probably more concerned with getting off this planet alive and the political situation, whatever is going on that he knows about, and controlling his troops, frankly. To me, it looked like those stormtroopers were like I said, they were on the verge of he might wake up, not wake up, and they steal everything from his room and take off. So I think those are conflicting interests there. The scientist doesn't really understand the dire situation. He's more focused on the, science aspect. Yeah. But what else happened in this episode? We had the kind of much more from the Mandalorians.
We got the new armor. He got his new armor and went to confront Grief Karga again.
We
Yeah.
saw a destroyer droid from the prequels in the
Mm-hmm.
flashback,
In this flashback.
Yeah.
which kind of
He
puts
has-
us back to the Clone Wars era for his childhood,
Yeah, that was great.
which would
Oh,
make him
that brings up the
somewhere
question
in his
too,
30s.
which I think I asked you when we were watching this. Is he actually Mandalorian? You know, is he Mandalorian by birth, or is he just a foundling that was adopted by the Mandalorian? Huh?
Corellian would know better than me, but that planet in the flashbacks didn't look anything like you would think Mandalore would look from the
No,
Clone
it's not
Wars.
Mandalore.
So, and Mandalore was a specific planet
Hmm.
and moon. So
Right.
unless it was some part of that wasn't shown in Clone Wars, he's either from a Mandalorian colony or he's not. And the
Yeah.
whole foundling thing might be their way. They may have been so devastated that somebody started this program of replenishing themselves by
Yeah.
helping orphans,
Adopting
then
more. Yeah.
arming them and indoctrinating them into the cult or whatever.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's interesting because
Yeah.
I thought that he was actually Mandalorian by birth, but now I don't think necessarily that he is.
I
We
don't think he
also we
is.
also learned that the Mandalorians brawl amongst themselves, and
Mhm.
the armorer, who seems to be the person in charge that we've seen so far, was
Mhm.
not phased by this in the slightest.
No.
Like they probably take each other down a notch or two on a regular basis as part of their pecking order. She did intervene right before it came to lethal blows, but she really didn't seem all that interested in the
Mhm.
details of their squabbling. Um, and of course, I think that was John Favreau doing the cameo
Yeah.
as the big Mandalorian guy, and he
Mhm.
was a Vizsla, which Corellian, help us out. What's Clan
Okay,
Vizsla?
that's okay. Pre Vizsla was the head of Death Watch, which this is
Oh.
not pre Vizsla. This is basically they're building this up to be like a relative or something like that.
He had
But
Vizsla in his
that's why
thing, but like
Favreau
he's from
voiced
that
it because they
planet.
wanted the voice to be similar. So you make that connection. For those of us who watch Clone Wars can make that connection because it's the exact
Oh
same
wow.
voice. So yeah, he was the leader of Death Watch, which is of course the sort of throwback sect of the Mandalorians who wanted to get back to the old ways of being a warrior culture and things like that. So that's where that character obviously is going to fit into this, I think.
Wow, I
Yeah.
had no idea. I'm gonna have to go back and watch Clone Wars now.
Hmm.
So, do
Yeah,
you
it's
think that
fantastic. Yeah.
the majority of the Mandalorians that survived this purge they keep talking about, which now I don't think was the Jedi purge. I don't think it was Order 66. I think it was something later.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Um,
it's definitely something later. Yeah.
do you think that the ones who survived are the warrior cult? You know, do you think that's the only ones left?
Probably
They've
because
gone
they're maybe
underground.
the most adept at surviving something like that, and
Yeah,
the fact that Death Watch and all the old school Mandalorians lived on the moon of Mandalore, not Mandalore itself.
yeah.
So that might have played a role in their survival as well.
And they
Oh,
revealed in
that's a
that
good
scene
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
that they don't take their helmets off as part of their code. They don't allow a antagonist to remove their helmet. They don't take off their helmet in front of other people as
Hmm.
part of their warrior code, which I thought was interesting because I know, even though I haven't seen a lot of Clone Wars, there were
Yeah, that's not consistent.
Mandalorians without
Yeah.
helmets. So there's
I'm
something.
almost getting the impression there's some kind of pseudo religious uh, ritualistic aspect to this particular tribe. She mentioned a tribe in the first episode. So I think there
Yeah,
could be different clans or tribes and they could hold in different ways and they could have different enclaves or they could be the last one. I mean, I guess we'll find all
Right.
this stuff out. But I kind of doubt the very last Mandalorians would have been hiding out on this same planet that everything
yeah,
took place on.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, all that stuff is going to be explained and I know with Filoni there, it's going to be at least consistent with Clone Wars
Oh yeah.
and prequel
Absolutely.
history and stuff because I don't think they would just establish this stuff with no explanation. So
Hmm.
it may not get explained much in the show though. It may come out as on down the line.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, we had the confrontation with the Imperials, the heart crushing moment where Mandalorian finds the egg in the dumpster.
oh,
Hmm.
oh,
That was brutal. You also have
oh,
the
feeling
awesome
pilot.
image of the baby Yoda wanting to take the ball off the stick shift,
Yeah,
and then the Mandalorian seeing that later, and that's what
yeah.
gets him to change his mind and go
Gets
back
him to
for
go
him.
back. Yeah.
Again,
Right.
visual storytelling, and I almost feel like this is part of the whole brilliance of them choosing a baby character, because it fits, with the lone wolf and cub thing, with everything we've been talking about. But I think a lot of these people have raised kids now or have kids of their own, and so I feel like a lot of these things, like where the Yoda's pushing the buttons and he's playing. I think a lot of this rings true to people who've raised kids, and they're drawing that. That's what brings that kind of relatability to the character and everything. And it's not overdone. It's not too cutesy,
Yeah.
but it's adorable at the same time. So,
Yeah.
Right.
and what else did we get in this episode? It culminates with Grief, Karga, and the Mandalorian having the confrontation,
Right
where
on his ship.
yeah, because
Let me say something about that just in the beginning of that scene. The shot where he first approaches him on the street, and then you get all the bounty hunters come out on the street, and there's an extreme long shot from the back of the Mandalorian looking down the street, and it looks like a Western town showdown. It
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
also like another samurai film, Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. And again,
yeah, phenomenal scene in that. Yeah,
any listeners out there that haven't watched Akira Kurosawa's movies and you're Star Wars fans, shame on you. You need to go watch Akira Kurosawa's samurai film. You need to watch Yojimbo first. That's my favorite. Hidden Fortress is the one that Star Wars: A New Hope maybe was most directly based on.
yeah, it has
Um,
R2 and 3PO and the princess
yeah,
and everything in it,
yeah, and the princess and the
and
hidden
Obi-Wan.
hidden rebel base and all that. But Yojimbo is wonderful with the wandering samurai, like the lone gunman in the spaghetti westerns, who goes into a town and gets caught in the middle of a brawl between two warring clans, and you got a wonderful street showdown between everybody at the end of that film. And the director, Deborah Chow, of this episode said that she purposely went back and watched Akira Kurosawa samurai movies before directing this, and she patterned those shots of the street fight on the end of Yojimbo.
Yeah.
So it picks up on that kind of spaghetti western epic samurai crossover vibe with the conclusion there. But then, like Greedo said, I love seeing all of the Mandalorians just fly around when they come into the rescue
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
end. It's just like,
fantastic. That's so
that's the
cool.
best moment. That's
Yeah, I
something you
love
waited
that.
for ever since you saw Boba Fett fly into the Sarlacc pit. You're like, damn
Right.
it, why didn't he get to fly around
Let me
more?
go fly right
and
out.
an interesting thing is that the end of this episode, everything we've learned from the first two episodes gets turned on its head. We
Yeah.
we think we have a show about one thing, and suddenly that it's just a setup, because the
Yeah.
setup gets destroyed by the end of he's broken the bounty hunter code, so
Yeah.
he's not really a bounty hunter anymore.
Right.
He's going to be chased by the bounty hunters. So the allegiances are becoming more clear, and the path to being more of a hero and less of an anti-hero is starting to open up, I think, which surprises me a little. I thought he would stay true to being an anti-hero a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but there's still opportunities for that. But I think if they bring in more of Imperials, which we know, Giancarlo Esposito, is that his name?
Mhm.
He's coming in at
Yeah.
some point, and he's got to be the villain.
Yeah.
Him and
Yeah.
Herzog got to be the two villains. So you got to, even an anti-hero is going to become more heroic against the Empire. So as we've
Yeah.
seen Han Solo and everybody else. Uh, anyway, and at the end of this episode, what I thought was really cool was that the Mandalorian gives mercy to Grief Karga. Even though Grief Karga is showing a really, really bad side of himself through this whole episode, he tries his best to
Yeah.
be despicable from their first
Yeah.
conversation all the way through the end. He's like, get some horrors, get some get some drugs,
Yeah,
horrors.
exactly.
You'll forget all about this stuff. He's trying to use the stuff that works on everyone else, and it doesn't work on a guy with some honor, at his core.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and so it draws a heavy contrast between them. But at the end, Mando remembers exactly where he was carrying his money, and he knows that
Yeah.
money is also an invincible metal or blaster-proof metal. He shoots him right in that somehow through all that smoke and everything. He gets the great shot. So I think there's obviously going to be a reconciliation there,
Yeah.
because that was like saying, for the sake of our friendship, which I acknowledge, even if you don't, I'm going to spare
Yeah.
your life here, even though you did the unpardonable by attacking my kid.
Yeah.
But the Mandalorian may be acknowledging too that he himself
He's at
did the
fault. Yeah.
unpardonable, by violating the code. And what else could Grief Karga do? So, yeah, he's not going to kill him over that. Yeah, I'm hoping that Carl Weathers will be back because I loved him in
Oh, he
this.
definitely will. This is
Yeah.
all being, if you look at the tropes that this all comes from, like I said, all these strands are being laid out there as part of this journey. That it's the typical anti-hero becoming a hero, and all of a sudden he has allies. If you follow the different strands of all the journeys he's been on, and you pull him, he pulls allies to himself at the end. So when all this stuff about a loner and everything is going to be counteracted by the fact that nobody can really stand alone,
Yeah.
and and that something about him and that armor and his behavior is going to display honor to everybody. Like the Ugnaught was the first one to acknowledge it. He
Yeah.
expected more from him, and he kind of put that on him, and it was like, "Aren't you one of your people? Aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. He kept
Don't you have this
reminding him, "You're a
code? Yeah,
Mandalorian."
aren't you supposed to be legendary, or are you crawling around in the dirt?" And so I think as he lives up to that, all these people will be drawn. It's the typical thing of leaders kind of come out of nowhere sometimes based on their behavior and the fact that they're needed in the moment. But you give people who have no cause anymore a cause to fight for, or someone to look up to emulate. And I think that's where this is all going. Is you're going to have a vision presented by the Imperial Remnant, and through what was his name, Moff.
Oh yeah, what is his name?
He's
He's
got
a
a
moth.
Moff Gideon, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's
He's.
it.
I think he's going to come in and present their vision, and then all these lowlifes and stuff are going to realize there's a hell of a lot more honor and freedom, and the way to continue their life by following somebody more like the Mandalorian or whoever. So all those threads of all these different journeys, I think, are going to get pulled together, and we're going to see all these characters again.
Yeah, I
Unite
hope so.
something. Because they're a crew, whether they know it or not yet. There's a
Yeah.
mechanic, there's muscle, there's the baby Yoda with whatever skills he has. People love it. So you've got an armor, you've got a Mandalorian strike force. I mean, it's all starting to come together where you can see the forces that are going to be in opposition. Anyway, what do we rate this episode? Episode 3, and it was called
Oh,
Sin, right?
The
the
Sin, yeah.
sin. The
For
sin
me,
is
I
a
would give this
10.
one a 9. I give this one a
No,
9.
no,
Yeah.
traitor. No,
We don't know what a 10 is yet on the show. I don't want to give a 10 right
I'm
now.
exactly
I
there
am
with them.
giving a
I'm giving
damn
it
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
We don't
giving
know
it
that this is. Yeah, I give it a 9 for sure. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 9 just because we don't know the ceiling, and I don't want to just be content with awesome. I want, because
I'll give an 11 when I get to.
yeah,
Give
Like,
it an 11.
that's great. You give it a 10. That's fine. I would, if I was thinking rationally, I probably would too. But I think the stakes are going to get larger, and when they get to the big episodes, it surprises you when the big episodes come so far. But when they get to the ones with emotional impact, that's when I'm going to judge it more. Like, is this a 10 or is it not?
Yeah.
So anyway, pretty high marks there, and then the last episode 4, Sanctuary. This is almost like a filler episode, but they take it as a breather, kind of, and to do some world building, show us a whole new planet, whole new people.
Yep.
Give
Introduce
us,
a new character.
give us more of the moral code of the Mandalorian himself and how he's going to react in different situations. And we get a new character. Is it Kara or Kara? Is it Leah?
Kara.
Leia? Is it Han or Han?
He pronounced it
Yeah.
Kara?
Yeah, Kara.
Okay, Kara.
Cara
We get
Dune.
Cara
Yeah.
Dune, right?
Mhm.
And that character has so much potential.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
she was kind of introduced. I thought she'd have more of an epic introduction than she had, but they decided to go kind of a different route with it and just show them as almost I can't say brothers in arms, but they have a mutual respect because they're both remnants of something, and they both have a
Yeah.
certain honor about them. Um, Her backstory again is just done in like a couple of lines, minimalist like the show's been doing so far, but has tons and tons of room for all kinds of things in there, and is extremely interesting to think about and dissect because this is the kind of stuff we wanted to know forever. Like what
Right.
happened. If you weren't a fan of the expanded universe,
Mhm.
you still want to know what happened with all that. Um, anyway, then we get the tribute to Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, whatever, with this storyline exactly lifted. This is the closest to me to a filler episode, but it's really not.
No, it's really not.
No, beautiful looking. The planet is awesome that they're on. The ATST is a great menacing villain in the tradition of like Duel, where the truck is the bad guy. And yeah, good action sequences, a good new character. This show just keeps rolling out new characters all the time. And again, I don't remember the name of the female villager, the mother figure who was going to adopt Baby Yoda.
With an O, but I can't remember how it was pronounced.
But obviously, again, they're showing there's more here than meets the eye because she's a natural leader. Yeah. She's empathic. She's not normal. She's not just your normal krill fisherman or whatever.
She has military training of some kind.
And where did that walker come from? There's obviously been conflict or something on this planet before that people don't really know about.
Exactly.
So anyway, anything you guys want to hit on in that episode? Obviously, Cara Dune.
Yeah, Cara Dune. I love the introduction of her character. I like the fact that we got her backstory, kind of in a nutshell there. Just, that she was a former, rebel soldier who ended up leaving after the Battle of Endor because she felt she was being asked to do questionable things in the context of rounding up, Imperials and things like that.
Yeah, when she said
so it kind of shed a light on
riot control.
That was like, whoa, what, really?
Kind of shed a interesting light on the New Republic. That they're not the wonderful thing that maybe everyone thinks they might have been. So I did like her introduction to her character, and the establishing shot of the fight that they had in the alleyway, because that shows basically what a badass warrior she is, and that she can go toe to toe with the Mandalorian and pretty much take him down, honestly. And so I love, and then I love the fact the fact that they fought it out, and then the very next scene they're just sitting there chilling at the.
It's not personal. Yeah. It's really not personal.
Yeah. I thought you were here to get a bounty on me. It was that. So I did love the introduction of her character. I think she's going to be a really interesting one to watch going forward.
Yeah, the fight looked real too.
It really did.
Her MMA fighting makes it obvious that she's a great choice for that part, because it looked real, and it reminded me of seeing Gwendolyn Christie play Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones.
I think that's what they're going for, kind of. Yeah. Now that you mentioned that is that's the closest analog.
Being a really big, powerful woman, who can in physical strength match the men is something really striking. And it's really cool to see that very physical, well choreographed fight between.
But they made absolutely no big deal of the fact that she was a woman. Zero.
No.
None whatsoever, which is awesome.
Love that.
The Mandalorian immediately picked her out as a threat because he knows what he's looking at, not because. It wasn't shocking that she was powerful because she was a woman.
No.
It was just perfectly in character and perfectly acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say something about the other female character, the widow. Of course, they're playing on the old trope of a lot of the westerns, where the lone gunslinger comes into town and the widow connects with them and their child or whatever, and he has to protect them. But I felt like, even though they only had 30 minutes to do this, that the connection between them was convincing to me. Mm-hmm. You felt like there was something in that lifestyle and in that person that the Mandalorian was really attracted to and connected to, and he would like, if he was able to give up the life that he had been leading, that was something that maybe he could imagine himself being a part of, but ultimately he found that he couldn't.
He was never given the choice before,
Yeah, and I really like the actors were convincing in that. And now I got to say that Pedro Pascal sold it with the helmet on. Mm-hmm. And I gotta push back against people who've been complaining about not taking off the helmet. I mean, I know that he is a physically striking, beautiful actor, and I think that a lot of the critics who were complaining from the very first episode that he stayed behind the helmet through the premiere,
Mhm.
and he's still been in the helmet the whole time now.
Yeah,
But they can't
exactly.
understand why that is. I think it's because they know it's Pedro Pascal, and
Right.
they are
Yeah.
expecting for the show to play upon his physical beauty. It didn't need to do that yet, and I like having the mystery of who that person
Yeah.
is, and I think is building up to what I hope will be a great payoff when the helmet finally comes off for
And we
an
don't know
important scene.
100% that he's going to look like him.
Yeah, we
We
don't.
don't
We
know
don't.
No.
anything. The
Yeah.
way
Well,
this
you
show the
you
way this show is going, anything can happen.
people who have been demanding that, just go watch Narcos or go watch
Yeah.
if you got to
He's
get
all
your
over the place.
yeah,
Yeah,
go watch Game of
exactly.
Thrones except for his last episode there.
Yeah.
If you want to enjoy his face, don't look at the
Yeah.
last episode. But
Yeah, don't. This isn't a show that calls for him to act and emote with his face. He's emoting.
yeah,
He's doing pantomime, or well, I'm not an actor. I don't know what you would call it, but it's a sophisticated form of acting that has its own challenges. And I'm sure it's not just him. I'm sure there are doubles and stunt
yeah,
doubles wearing the armor and stuff too. So you got to give credit to everyone. A character like that is built from the ground up with the concept. If he didn't look right, we wouldn't accept him. If he didn't sound right, we wouldn't accept him. If he didn't move right, we wouldn't accept him. So there's a
Exactly.
whole, it's not just him. There's a whole team making that character happen, and the writing for him and everything is why we accept that character. Um,
Mhm.
the only thing I would say is that the character's been a little safe sometimes, like exactly what you would expect.
Mhm.
The coolest out of character thing he did was when he blew the droid away in the first episode.
yeah.
So, like
Yeah, yeah.
that really shocked me because I had no, it all happened so fast I didn't have a chance to think about it. But I wouldn't. I thought they were partners, you know. And
Yeah.
I really didn't think he'd just blow the droid away like that.
He's a
Yeah.
fellow guild member.
So that was the first time he just made his own decision where he seemed interested in something, you know, and took his own agency and really made something happen. And I don't know. I think that's the kind of thing that's going to define the character, not his face,
Yeah.
because they've already established there's rules here. Once someone sees him, which is us, once
Yeah.
we see him with his helmet off, he
You
cannot put it
can't
back
put
on
it back
again.
on. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be a big deal, not because it's Pedro Pascal's handsome face, although that would be great. It's a big deal because it'll signal the end of part of the
Yeah.
show and something going in another direction.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is there could be more rules that we don't know about. He could be shamed at some point, like Branded. You remember the old Western TV show, and
Yeah.
have to, or the Lone Ranger, you know, or something, and have to
Mhm.
redeem himself in the eyes of the Mandalorians by earning his helmet back. There could be all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
and I also heard that that maybe you can take it off with your spouse because your immediate family because you have to,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and so does the Yoda child, Yoda
Account
2,
as
is
yeah.
that going to become adopted family, and will we
Yeah.
see? That would be like too cute to endure if Pedro Pascal and Yoda child interacted for
On the
real.
screen together,
Yeah,
my head might
I think heads would explode around the world if Pedro Pascal smiles at all. You know, when he's interacting with Yoda Chew, I think people will just keel over from the cuteness of it. But I said from the beginning in our previous show that the mask element really intrigues me because of the choice of actor. But imagine how amazing this would be if we didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
I know
You
they
would
couldn't
be
do that.
wondering.
They chose not
Yeah.
to do that, and they couldn't do that. It wouldn't be fair to him. But
Yeah.
imagine if they could have somehow kept it under wraps, and we're trying to figure out who he is by his voice, by his movements.
Mhm.
That era is over though, where you can pull that kind of stunt. That's
Oh
impossible.
yeah. No,
But
that's
imagine
long
how
gone.
amazing the reveal would be at
Mhm.
that point.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's some wrinkle there that we're gonna get, or
Mhm.
they might stick to the simple and lean storytelling they've been doing. It might be exactly what we expect. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, my only critique of that episode is that it should have been longer
Mhm.
because it specifically dealt with things that needed time to draw
Yeah.
you in a little more, and a whole bunch of new characters and connections with those characters that I would have felt a little better about with some more scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's really my only critique of that one.
Yeah.
And I would
I
give
loved
it
it.
I would give it a I would give it an 8.
Gundark.
I give it a 7.
I give it an 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. I dropped down and you guys went up on.
Yeah.
I thought it was a nice change of
I
pace.
might be willing to bump it up to an 8 for the fact that it made the chicken walker truly terrifying.
really did. It was possessed with its red eyes.
Yeah, it was a zombie chicken walker. It was
Yeah,
great.
zombie chicken walker.
It felt like the
I
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I really hope we see Cara Dune before season 2.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think there's going to be some, event at the end of this season. Obviously, it's going to be hard to top what they've done already. They've already had 2 massive events, it felt like, in the show so far. But I really think there is going to be something that'll draw these characters back together where the Mandalorian will need them, or I think he'll be laid low somehow, and they will show up to support him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, that's how they're going to pull some of these characters back in.
Yeah, and even though they've already played the card of Yoda being captured, or he was handed over, I think he's going to be captured, and I think this battle, or he's going to be in peril, and isolated, and they're going to need the cavalry to come in, and somehow the Mandalorian's friends he didn't realize he had are going to organize and come in and help. Because if you remember at the end of Yojimbo, the samurais laid low, and asked to basically come back from the dead.
Yojimbo remade his fistful of dollars.
And many other movies.
Yes, many.
Like 50 times.
Last Man Standing, I think, was the Bruce Willis one, and so he always goes down before he comes back, usually with the help of others.
That's where this Rocky theme will come into play, I think. When
He'll have a training montage where he'll build his strength back up or something.
And we also have some foreshadowing, like the rocket pack, where he said, "I gotta get me one of those."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to happen at some point.
That'll be season 2.
Yeah. And so anyway, I did want to say about the music that it's something I forgot to say earlier is I really like the. I'm trying to think of what throwback or what they get this from, but I really like the synth sounds that they use that sound organic and that have a really fast cycle rate on it sounds like a phaser's on it, or it's you know what I'm talking about, and it almost reminds you of old sci-fi, but with a touch of almost like Blade Runner or something from that era. I love those undertones when they throw them in, especially the low notes, and they let them ring and they put that phaser on it or whatever. It really puts you in the headspace of this is different. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
It is Star Wars, but it is also sci-fi and very, very cool work. Actually, whole soundtrack. I really do like it. I was very torn at the beginning, but I really think this show owes a lot to the Clone Wars cartoon, and to Samurai Jack and cartoons like that.
Samurai Jack,
Yeah,
the little 30-minute format of the adventures that do have a longer story arc attached to.
Mm-hmm.
And usually have minimal dialogue.
Yeah.
And are more done with action and how they're pulling that off with so many characters with masks and aliens and everything is just awesome. It's Star Wars again. It's not just a human galaxy with a few aliens around. There's droids and aliens everywhere. And humans seem fewer and further between, and that's very cool.
Yeah.
It's about time. Anything
I agree.
else we want to...
Any other wrap-up comments?
Just looking forward to the rest of it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the heck second season will be.
In a few more hours, you can watch the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, not very long.
We're on the eve of episode 5 right here. So I'm very anxious to see what that's going to be like. Okay, well, if we don't have anything else, we'll sign out. Everybody good?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for watching and paying attention and listening, guys. Find us on YouTube. Find us on our Facebook page, on Twitter, all the above. Just like us and follow us and leave us your comments. We'd love to
like us.
Please like us. Yeah. Give us your comments. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys. All right. So until next time, keep enjoying The Mandalorian and then that whatever that other movie is coming out. So we'll see you next time.
That's Corellian Trader, by the way. I don't think we... Gundark's over there. Corellian Trader's over there.
Gundark's wearing the Chihuahua Yoda shirt. And, and she has a tub.
Cantina clubbing is
Wow.
a complicated business.
Don't you agree?
I was arguing with myself.
Okay, so as show moderator here tonight, I'm going to give the final word to the Tauntaun. And that's all you need to know.
I thought they smoked that on the outside. Damn, dude.
It's possessed.
Moloch. Moloch. Beelzebub.
Oh my goodness.